Let's dive in and get started with some Python interview questions. Number 1, what is the difference between shallow copy and deep copy? And you can see with shallow copy we have object 1, which has child 1, child 2, child 3, and so on, and object 2, which has child 1, child 2, child 3. A deep copy creates a different object and populates it with the child objects of the original object. Therefore, changes in the original object is not reflected in the copy. Copy.deepCopy creates a deep copy. Shallow copy creates a different object and populates it with the references of the child objects within the original object. Therefore, changes in the original object is reflected in the copy. Copy.copy creates a shallow copy. And you can look at this. If we make a change to child 1, it's only a pointer. So if you make it in object 1 and a change to child 1 in object 1, it will also make that change in object 2. Number 2, how is multi-threading achieved in Python? Oh, this is a good one. With multiprocessing and multi-threading, this question is actually asking you, do you know the difference between multiprocessing and multi-threading and how multi-threading works? Multi-threading usually implies that multiple threads are executed concurrently. The Python global interpreter lock doesn't allow more than one thread to hold the Python interpreter at that particular point of time. So, multi-threading in Python is achieved through context switching. It's very different than multiprocessing, which actually opens up multiple processes across multiple threads. So, multi-threading. Discuss the Django architecture. So the Django architecture, and the first thing to know is that the Django is a web service, way to build your web pages basically. And so when you look at the architecture, you can see here we have a nice model drawn out where the user initiates the Django, which initiates the URL, which initiates the view, what they're going to view, and you have your model and your template. So the model of data, whatever data model you're pulling, goes into the template and then goes back up the pipeline to the user. And the important thing to note is there's a template, the front end of the web page. This is what they're going to see. There's a model, the back end where the data is stored. So you can keep the template and the looks and everything looks the same, but you can swap out the underlying information that goes into that template. Then you have your view, which interacts with the model and template and maps it to the URL, and then the Django serves the page to the user. So your Django grabs it and says, okay, thank you for the URL, and here you go, user. What advantage does NumPy array have over nested list? So NumPy is a module you import. Almost always see NumPy, import NumPy as NP. NumPy is written in C, such that all its complexities are backed into a simple to use module. Lists, on the other hand, are dynamically typed. Therefore, Python must check the data type of each element every time it uses it. This makes NumPy arrays much faster than lists. I would also add in that NumPy has a lot of additional functionality that you don't have in lists. So there's a lot of things you can automate in the NumPy. Quick flip over to our Jupyter notebook. Any IDE will work. If you're going to do a set of interview questions, taking a quick look at code is always important. We have our import NumPy as NP. We'll go ahead and import time. Here's our list sub for I in range of 100. And what we're doing is we're going to time it. So we're going to create a list. Then we're going to create a NumPy zeros array. And you can see here, look how quick you can create this NumPy zeros array. Here we are appending 1 0 at a time for a regular Python list, and here we are with NumPy. They're all zeros, and they're all of type integer. I believe it's either float or integer on this. I'd have to actually do a type on it. And then, so if we take in and we create a TL1 time equals time, and then we do for I in range of 100, for j in range of 100, L of I, j equals L of ij plus 5. So we're just doing a simple calculation on our array and subarrays. This is an array of arrays. And we'll do the same thing with TL2. TL2 time.time, TL1 equals, so here we have our final time on that. And then we'll do this with an array op, and this is what I really love, a equals a plus 10, and then you can just print it right out. So you can see right here with the NumPy array, we're doing the same thing. If I run this, our time is significantly different. Here we have 0.09 and 0.003. So you can see that the time drops significantly when you're running this on a NumPy array versus a list array. Also important to note, these times aren't going to be, they'll change each time I run it depending on what I have running in the background. So there we go. Number 5, what is pickling and unpickling. Amazes me how many times I pickle and unpickle something. Converting a Python object hierarchy to a byte stream is called pickling. Pickling is also referred to as serialization. Unpickling, converting a byte stream to a Python object hierarchy, is also called unpickling. Unpickling is also referred to as deserialization. So if you just created a neural network model, you can now save that model to your hard drive, pickle it, and then you can unpickle it to bring it back into another software program or to use at a later time. How is memory managed in Python? Number 6. Python has a private heap space where it stores all the objects. The Python memory manager manages various aspects of this heap like sharing, caching, segmentation, and allocation. The user has no control over the heap. Only the Python interpreter has the access. You have a nice little diagram here. Here's your program. There's your interpreter. We have our heap, memory management on the garbage collector going off of there. Number 7. Are arguments in Python passed by value or by reference? Arguments are passed in Python by reference. This means that any change made within a function is reflected on the original object. So you can see here def function of L of 0 equals 3, L equals 1, 2, 3, 4, function L, print L, and you're going to get 3, 2, 3, 4 because we've passed L in there, so it's a pointer. Here we have def function L equals 3, 2, 3, 4, L equals 1, 2, 3, 4, function of L, print L. Because in this function I have assigned, instead of operating on a piece of L, the list, I've assigned a whole new value to that list, or L. It then at that point will create a new object. So if I make changes to the object, it's going to change it in the outside the definition. If I use a variable and I assign it a completely new value, like L equals 3, 2, 3, 4, that will not show up when you're outside the function. Number 8. How would you generate random numbers in Python? To generate random numbers in Python, you must first import the random module. The random function generates a random float value between 0 and 1. The random range function generates a random number within a given range. And you can see here 1 is the lower end, 10 is the upper end, and step 2. So it would be 1, 3, 5, and so on as far as the options in the random generation. Number 9. What does the double forward slash operator do? In Python, the forward slash operator performs division and returns the quotient in float. For example, 5 over 2 returns 2.5. To do a double forward slash operator, on the other hand, returns the quotient in integer. For example, 5 double slash returns 2. 5 divided by 2 and you drop the 0.5. Number 10. What does the is operator do? The is operator compares the ID of the two objects. And you can see in here where list1 equals brackets around 1, 2, 3, list1 equals list2 equals true. And you have the double equals in Python, of course. And you can do list1 is list2, where list2 equals 1, 2, 3 is false. List2 is not the brackets 1, 2, 3. It equals it, but it's not the brackets. And if we do list3 equals list1, then list1 is list3 equals true. Number 11. What is the purpose of pass statement? The pass statement is used when there's a syntactic but not an operational requirement. For example, the program below prints a string ignoring the spaces. And so here we have variable equals Simplilearn. We've added 2 spaces in it. For I in variable, so it goes through each I. If I equals space, do nothing. Else, print I, and then we'll have the end equals bracket bracket, and they'll print out Simplilearn. Now, of course, you would probably write this if I does not equal blank space, print. But this would be another way you could do that if you need a placeholder for that first logical set or that first area. And you can also do a function like this. You could do function, whatever your def function name, brackets, colon, pass. So it goes into the function and does nothing, but it's a placeholder. Number 12. How will you check all the characters in a string are alphanumeric? Python has an inbuilt method, isAllNumber, which returns true if all characters in the string are alphanumeric. And so you can see here, ABCD, 1, 2, 3, isAllNumber, output equals true. And the second line, ABCD, the @ symbol, 1, 2, 3, the pound symbol, isAllNum, output equals false. So really you just want to know about isAllNum, all numerical, alphanumerical. Number 12. How will you check if all characters in a string are alphanumeric? So here we go. If you know is all number, which returns that the characters in the string are alphanumeric, one can also use regex instead. And so we have Boolean RE match. What's important about this is to note your capital A dash to capital Z, A lowercase to dash to Z, 0 to 9 means that that array includes all of those, the way they have it written out. Plus a $sign, and then we have what we're comparing it to, the string we're comparing to, the ABCD 1, 2, 3. And so we can do an RE.match, and if it matches, if all these things, if all the different entities in that array matches the first one, we get an output true, and if not, an output false. Number 13, how will you merge elements in a sequence? Sequence. There are three types of sequences in Python. There's lists, tuples, and strings. Python, of course, makes this easy. If we have a list 1 and list 2, and list 1 is square brackets 1, 2, 3, list 2 is 4, 5, and 6, we can simply do list 1 plus list 2. And our output is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If we have tuples, your tuple is the curved brackets designates it, and again, just add them together. Same thing with strings. We have Simplilearn, S1 plus S2 equals Simplilearn. Number 14. How will you remove all leading whitespace in a string? Python provides the inbuilt function lstrip to remove all leading access from a string. And you can see here, space python dot lstrip, leading strip, Python. And you can also do strip, which relieves leading and ending. And of course, there's also the ending set. Number 15. How will you replace all occurrences of a substring with a new string? The replace function can be used with strings for replacing a substring with a given string. Syntax: string.replace old, new, count. Replace returns a new string without modifying the original string. Hey John, how are you, John? ? Replace John with capital JOHN 1. And then you can see right here, hey John, how are you? And since we designated with the 1, just says we're only going to replace one of these. 16. What is the difference between del and remove brackets on lists? Del for delete. Del removes all elements of a list within a given range. Syntax: del list start to end. Remove. Remove brackets removes the first occurrence of a particular character. Syntax: list remove element. And we see a nice example over here. If we delete the list 1 to 3, it will delete the first, in this case B 1, 2. It doesn't do 3, remember that. 1, 2, so it will delete B and C and you end up with a D. Where if we do remove B from the list and we have an A, B, B, D, it's only going to remove the first B. Number 17, how to display the contents of text file in reverse order. Open the file using the open function. Store the contents of the file into a list. Reverse the contents of the list. Run a for loop to iterate through the list. Number 18. Differential between append and extend. Append adds an element to the end of the list. You can see right here we have a list 1, 2, 3, 4, and we append 4, and we end up with an output 1, 2, 3, 4. And extend adds an element from an interval to the end of the list. And we have here list equals 1, 2, 3, list.extend 4, 5, 6. Output is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if you want to append an array to the end of another array, you want to use the extend. Number 19. What's the output of the below code? Justify your answer. This is a great interview question because these are the kind of things that come up when you're proofing code. Def add to list, value, and list. So we have value in and a list in, or list equals an empty, in this case an empty list. List.append value, return list. List 1 equals add to list 1. List 2 equals add to list 1, 2, 3, empty bracket. List 3 equals add to list A. And then we want to print them. List 1 equals, and you can see the formatting. We have our placeholder, list 1, list 2, and list 3. So when it prints list 1, we get 1, comma A. And what you want to notice here is that list 1 and list 3 are equal. Why are they equal? Well, when we passed the information to the add to list, we passed value without passing the list equals brackets, without passing a second value. What this means is that list, as we have it, if you don't have a list, it'll start off with empty list, which we append the 1 to. The second one, list 2, we appended a value to an empty list. So it's only going to be 1, 2, 3. It doesn't matter what the list was before, we've already assigned an empty list. And then list 3, here's the tricky one. We're adding A to the list, but because we didn't designate the list, list is a shared value. In other words, it doesn't reset it. And we end up with list1 equals list3, 1 comma a. Default list is created only once during the function and not during its call. Number 20. What is the difference between a list and a tuple? Lists are mutable while tuples are immutable. And you can see an example down here where I have list equals 1, 2, 3. Square brackets denote it's a list. List of 2 equals 4, and I print it out and I now have 1, 2, 4. If I do the same thing with the tuple, I get an error, because you can't change the tuple 1, 2, 3 into 1, 2, 4. You have to completely reassign tuple to a new value. What is docstring in Python? Docstrings are used in providing documentation to various Python modules, classes, functions, and methods. And so you can see here we have def for our function, add AB, and this is a docstring. We have the triple brackets on there. You can add carriage return in that so that you can go multiple lines. And it says this function adds 2 numbers. And then sum AB returns sum. And so we have down here 2 different ways of accessing this function. Output, accessing docstring method 1, this function adds 2 numbers. Accessing docstring method 2, help on function add in model main. This function adds 2 numbers. And so you can see the code down here has 2 very different end values. The second one is basically a help menu. There's our help menu. Number 22, how do you use print without the new line? The solution to this depends on the Python version you are using. In Python version 2, you can do print hi and then you add a comma afterwards. Print how are you? And you have hi, how are you? In version 3, print hi, comma, end equals, and it'll add a space on the end there. You can put different characters in there, but generally you just want to put a space on the end. Print how are you, and now we get hi, how are you? Number 23, how do you use the split function in Python? The split function splits a string into a number of strings based on a specific delimiter. So we have string, split, delimiter, comma, max, the maximum number of splits. The character based on which the string is to split by default is space. So here we have an example. We have a variable red, blue, green, orange, and we want to split it by commas, and we only want to do the first 2. So if we print the list now, you'll find it has red, blue. It only split it the first 2 times, and then it gets to the third one and just groups them all together, green and orange. If you leave the 2 off, it'll split the whole thing. Number 24, is Python object-oriented or functional programming? Python follows object-oriented paradigm. And you should really know in depth what they mean by object-oriented paradigm if you're doing any interview for scripting languages. Python allows the creation of objects and its manipulation through specific methods. It supports most of the features of OOPS, which has inheritance on a polymorphism. So you have an object and you can inherit all the traits of that object and then add new traits in or alter some of those traits. That's what object-oriented means. Python follows functional programming paradigm. Functions may be used as first class object. Python supports lambda functions, which are characteristic of functional paradigm. So you can set a variable to a function as opposed to setting it to an object. Number 25. Write a function prototype that takes variable number of arguments. Here we have def function name list. So we could have, in this case, whatever the list is, def function. The asterisk denotes that we're going to take multiple arguments of a variable, and then we can do for I in var, print I. So if you send function of 1, you'll end up with a function 1, 2, 5, 6. It'll actually print those out one at a time. The first one just prints out a 1 because it only sent 1 variable. The second one will print 1, another line 25, another line 6. Number 26. What is asterisk args and asterisk quargs? Args used in function prototype to accept varying number of arguments. It's an iterable object, def function args. And you can imagine it's just a basic list. So if I add the numbers a comma b or a comma b comma c, it doesn't really matter. It will have that number of objects in it, whatever I send to it. And there's other uses for it, but that's very basic. Quargs, I can actually tell it what I want to send. So used in a function prototype and to accept varying number of keyworded arguments. Both are iterable objects, so you can go through them one at a time. And the def function quards, you can now set like color equals red, units equal 2. So you'll see that, especially in machine learning, there's a lot of they'll have inline equals true, that kind of thing. Number 27. In Python, functions are first class objects. What do you understand from this? This means I could return a function. It could be one from another function. I could create a function and treat it just like an object. I can assign it to a variable. I can pass them as arguments to other functions. Number 28. What is the output of print name __ name? Justify your answer. The __ name is a special variable that holds the name of the current module. Program execution starts from main or a code with 0 indentation. Thus, __ name has a value __ main _ in the above case. If the file is imported from another module, then __ name _ holds the name of this module. Number 29. What is a numpy array? And we briefly touched numpy array compared to a list earlier in processing speed. Now let's go ahead and look at some of the more specifics. A numpy array is a grid of values, all of the same type. So if they're either all float, all integer, all string, and is indexed by a tuple of non-negative integers. The number of dimensions is the rank of the array. And the shape of an array is a tuple of integers giving the size of the array along each dimension. Number 30. What is the difference between matrices and arrays? A matrix comes from linear algebra and is a two-dimensional representation of data. It comes with a powerful set of mathematical operations that allow you to manipulate the data in interesting ways. Now, an array is a sequence of objects of similar data type. An array within another array forms a matrix. Like we said here, two-dimensional, so if you have an array of 3 by 4, that would be a matrix. Number 31. How to get indexes of n maximum values in a numpy array. Of course, the first thing to do is to import your numpy as np. You don't necessarily have to use np, but that is the most standard use of numpy. We create our array equals an np.array of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then if we want to get our indexes of n maximum values in a numpy array, we can do, one way to do it is to take our array, sort it, then do -n colon. That means we're going to do, once you've sorted it, you can do -n. N would equal then the number of indices, so it's not the actual letter n, colon. And really this is about understanding this notation, that we can sort it, so it goes from lowest to biggest, and then we can get the top values for n indexes. And then we have our final set of brackets with the -1 on there. Number 32. How would you obtain the resulting set from the train set and the test set from below? And let's go ahead and look at the two different variables. We have train set equals an array of 1, 2, 3. Test set equals a numpy array of arrays. We have 0, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. What's important here is that, one, it's a numpy, so that leaves A out, and then we're stuck with 3 other options, and I'm going to say that D is out, none of these. And let's look at np.concatenate versus np.vstack. Concatenate would put one set after the other, so you would end up with, probably give you an error, because one set is 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to concatenate array 0, 1, 2 and array 1, 2, 3, the array of arrays, onto the end of that. What we really want to do is stack, and by the way, you can actually switch, there's variables you can put into concatenate obviously that can change this, so you could use the concatenate with a lot of fudging around. But really what we're looking for is VStack. V stands for vertical versus the HStack, which is horizontal, and if we do a VStack we can simply do train set comma test set and stack them together. And so we have C, resulting set equals np.vstack train stack test set. Both option A and B would do horizontal stacking, but we would like to have the vertical stacking. Option C does this. Again, you could add the axes in and use the concatenate to stack it the correct way. Number 33. How would you import a decision tree classifier in sklearn? We have sklearn.decisiontree import decision tree classifier. From sklearn ensemble import decision tree classifier. And we look at these and they're all import decision tree classifier. That actually last part happens to be correct, and it's really just a vocabulary knowing where is the decision tree classifier stored, what module is that a part of, and it is of course part of the sklearn.tree. Number C. Number 34. You have uploaded the data set in CSV format on Google Spreadsheet and shared it publicly. How can you access this in Python? What's important here is to know that we can read stuff with pandas. So we don't show it here, but you can, there's actually a number of ways to do this. What's important here is to know a couple things. One, we have our link generated from the Google Docs and spreadsheets, and then we can do a string.io request get link panda.content. So there's our source. And then finally, we know that pandas can read a CSV. There's obviously many ways to read a CSV, but data equals pd.read_CSV source. Number 35. What is the difference between the two data series given below? Below we have df name and df location, colon, comma, brackets around, asterisks around name, comma, where. And then we have df equals pd data frame, AABBXXUU, comma, 21, 16, 50, 33. Columns equal name and age. So let's take a look and see what they're looking at. We have, just glancing at the questions, they want to know, is it the original data frame or is it the copy of the data frame? And you can see here that 1 is view of the original data frame and 2 is a copy of the original data frame. 2 is a view of the original data frame and 1 is a copy of the original data frame. Both are copies, both are views. And if you're working with pandas, you know that unless you specifically in certain things tell it to do it inline, and a lot of functions don't allow you, that you're always taking a slice and it is always a copy. So C, both are copies of the original data frame. Number 36, you get the following error while trying to read a file, temp.csv using pandas. Which of the following could correct it? So here's our error. Trace back most recent call last, file input, line 1 in module, Unicode encode error. ASCII codecs can't encode character. Ooh, I hate it when that one comes up. And we have 4 different entries. We'll go ahead and just pretend that D doesn't exist unless we really can't fit it into one of the other answers. And the first one is PD read CSV has our file compression equals gzip. Well, gzip is just an unzipping and you actually get a zip error on there. The second one is dialect equals string. Again, not an encoding or coding setup. And then we have encoding equals UTF-8. Well, that would be the encoding error, switching it from the character code. There's UTF-8, there is Unicode. That's the most common two that it goes between. So really this is about understanding the difference between a UTF-8 coding and a Unicode and the error that comes up quite regularly with that. Number C, encoding should be UTF-8. Number 37. How to set a line width in a plot given below. So looking at this, we have import matplot library, pyplot as PLT, and you should know your way around this, how to do a plot in there. PLT.plot 1, 2, 3, 4, plot equals show. And so this is a little bit of a vocabulary test. The vocabulary is at width equals 3, line width equals 3, LW equals 3, or something else. And the vocabulary word that we're looking for is LW equals 3, which stands for line width in pyplot library, pyplot. Number 38. How would you reset the index of a data frame to a given list? So this is a vocabulary challenge in understanding what reindexing is. Reindexing, as we have the different values here, we have the first one, which is reset the index. Well, we're not really resetting the index. Reindex number B means we are double checking our indexes to the column and to the main index, and so the values match correctly. Where reindex like now brings in a new index outside of our data frame to a given list. So this is coming from external, and thus the vocabulary word like is our key word, that it's external, and we have a data frame to a given list. Number 39. How can you copy objects in Python? The functions used to copy objects in Python, we have copy for shallow copying and copy deep copying for deep copy. Number 40. What is the difference between range and xrange functions in Python? Well, this is a good one. We have matrices and arrays. With a matrix, the range returns a Python list object. Xrange returns an xrange object. And with arrays, an xrange returns an xrange object. Xrange creates values as you need them through yielding. The key here is that xrange returns the values as you need them. So it actually processes it post, like if you have for x or for a variable in xrange, it is processing them as you need them, 0 to 9. It doesn't create an array 0 to 9, it just hands you 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 at a time. Number 41. How can you check whether a pandas data frame is empty or not? The tribute df.empty is used to check whether a pandas data frame is empty or not. And so you can simply create we have down here import our pandas as PD. We create our pandas data frame equal to an empty array, and is df.empty comes out as true. One of the catches you got to remember with these vocabularies is with empty along with some other pandas pandas setup, whether you need the brackets or not at the end. Number 42. Write the code to sort an array in NumPy by the n-1th column. This can be achieved using argsort function. Let us take an array x, then to sort the n-1th column, the code will be x to colon n-2.args_sort. So let's see what that code looks like. We import NumPy as np. We'll create our array, our NumPy array, which is 1, 2, 3, 0, 5, 2, 2, 3, 4. So we have 3 different entities with 3 different columns in there. And we go x of x, and so we take x of all the rows, first entity, or in this case it's actually the second one because it's 0, 1, 2, .argsort. So that would be the second entity, or -2 would also be the same. You could also do, instead of 1, you could also do -2 there instead of the 1. Argsort, and then we get an output of the array 1, 2, 3, 0, 5, 2, 2, 3, 4. Number 43, how to create a series from a list, NumPy array, and dictionary. So we'll go ahead and import our NumPy, our pandas, and have my list. And you can see here we have my list equals list of A, B, C, D, E, F, G all the way through. So my list now makes a list of that. For array, we have np.arange to 26. My dictionary will create a dictionary with zip my list, my arguments. So I'll just use the NumPy array we just created with my array to go into the dictionary. And the solution is simple with the pd.series my list, pd.series my array, pd.series my dictionary. So it's all about knowing the dot, capital S-E-R-I-E-S. Don't forget that capitalization. Number 44. How to get the items not common to both Series A and Series B. And you can see here we have, instead of Series A and B, we have Series 1 and 2, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The solution is we take a panda series, we have a series U equals a panda series, NP union 1 dimension, Series 1, Series 2. So we can now make a union of them. We now have Series 1 panda series with an intersection, and then we can remove one from the other. Series U is Series U dot is in Series 1. So if the union is not in the intersection, then you know it's a unique value. A little bit of logic going on there and playing with 3 different terms to get the answer we want. 45. How to keep only the top 2 most frequent values as it is and replace everything else as other in a series. So again, we're working with pandas, because if you're talking series and data frames, that means we're working with pandas. So we're going to import pandas as PD. We'll go ahead and create our panda series. We're going to do that by creating a NumPy random state 100, so 100 in the NumPy one. And then we have our panda series. You can see here we're random integer, NumPy random.random integer of 1, 5 by 12. And so the solution for this is we go ahead and we've created a PD dot, remember the capital S series solution. We're going to print the top 2 frequencies, and that is our series dot value counts. And then we take series values count dot index of up to 2. So we're going to take everything up to 2. And then we'll do the series is in. So if it's not in the first 2, then it's going to equal other. And this would be something you'd want to write down on paper. If it looks confusing, take a moment, pause the video, write this down, and see if you can figure out how the logic came together and try to throw yourself a couple other little logic puzzles like this. Number 46. How to find the positions of numbers that are multiples of 3 from a series. And in here we're actually going to use a NumPy to solve it. The first part, series, lets you know it's going to be a panda series. And if we come down here, we have np.argwhere, so this is a vocabulary question, series with, remember the percentile 3 is a remainder, so if the remainder equals 0, then we're going to generate that string where the object divided by 3 equals 0 has no remainder, so then we know it's a multiple of 3. Number 47, how to compute the Euclidean distance between 2 series. And this one's really cool because we have our panda series, P and Q. And what I like about this one is they give us 2 solutions you can go with. And really you should kind of know both. The first one would be, yes, you know what the Euclidean distance is. And that is we can take the first series minus the second series squared. And then sum them up, and then we do the square root, which is the same as taking the power to 0.5. Doing the power to 0.5 is easier than doing the square root. So a lot of times you'll see that as a switch, but you could have also done the square root and used the math in there. So there's solution 1. You should know your Euclidean distance. And then solution 2 is the NumPy solution. So we have np.linalg.norm. That's how we're going to compute our Euclidean distance. P minus Q. Very elegant and very straightforward and easy to compute. Number 48. How to reverse the rows of data frame. So here we have our data frame. We're going to create a NumPy array by 25, reshape it 5 minus 1. And this creates a 25 by 25 data frame. And so our solution is to do the df location. And this is just understanding how steps work. The steps, you have your colon, colon, minus 1. So we're taking all the rows, all the columns, minus 1. So we're stepping minus 1 going the reverse direction. And then we're just going to use across all the different columns on there. Let me say that again. The first colon is going to be your rows. Starting row, stopping row, step minus 1. That's all this is about, is that step minus 1, comma, and then all the columns. 49. If you split your data into train test splits, is it possible to overfit your model? And the answer is yes, is definitely possible. One common beginner mistake is retuning a model or training new models with different parameters after seeing its performance on the test set. My favorite example of this is you have your script put together and you keep hitting the rerun button until you get the answer you want, not taking the answer it first gave you, or running it over an array and recording all the answers to see how they vary. Number 50. Which Python library is built on top of Matplot library and pandas to ease data plotting? The answer to this is Seaborn. Seaborn is a data visualization library in Python that provides a high-level interface for drawing statistical informative graphs.